Let's work with some examples of basic math concepts used in managerial accounting. We will use actual accounting examples. Some of the concepts may be new to you. Don't worry, you will cover these in detail as the semester progresses. For now, let's focus on the math concepts that apply to these accounting examples. Be sure to use a calculator as you view this module. Work out the examples. Be active. You can print the narrative from the Accounting Toolbox website before you view the remainder of this video. This may make it easier to work with the examples. Let's start with factory overhead. Examples include factory rent, utilities, indirect labor, indirect materials, maintenance, depreciation. These items cannot be easily or conveniently traced to the product. Managerial accounting looks at future amounts. We are working with the actual overhead for X1, $500,000, and estimating the amount for X2. We have estimated that the amount will increase by 7.5%. The result will allow us to estimate the overhead for X2. There are two ways to solve this. The first way is a one-step approach. Since the overhead is expected to increase by 7.5%, the total for X2 will be 1.075. 1 to cover the 500,000 plus 0.075. 7.5% has been converted into a decimal. This gives the total estimated for X2 to be 537,500. A two-step approach is to first determine the amount of the increase. The 500,000 times 0.075, a $37,500 increase. The second step is to add the X1 amount to the amount of the estimated increase to arrive at that 537,500 estimated amount for X2. Once factory overhead is estimated at the beginning of the accounting period, we have to determine a rate. This rate is then used to apply overhead to products during the accounting period. There are several bases, denominators, to use to determine the rate. Our example uses direct labor dollars. Our estimated overhead is that amount, 537,500, computed earlier. The estimated base, direct labor dollars, estimated to be 215,000. Take the estimated overhead, divide it by the estimated base, and that equals the predetermined application rate. We take our numbers from the previous slide. That divides to give us 2.5. We have divided dollars by dollars. The result is a ratio or a relationship. Interpretation: for every $1 of direct labor dollars, we apply $2.50 of factory overhead. Or, factory overhead is applied at the rate of 250% of direct labor dollars. Now let's look at standard cost. This represents the amount that a unit of product should cost to make. Actual cost is compared to the standard cost. Differences are investigated. The actual cost consists of direct material, direct labor, factory overhead. Standard cost is what it should cost to make, the direct material, direct labor, factory overhead. So let's look at some facts. For one desk lamp, standard labor quantity should be 18 minutes. Standard labor rate should be $12 per hour. The rate is stated in hours, $12 per hour. The quantity is stated in minutes, 18 minutes. I'll convert the minutes into a portion of an hour, a fraction, or a decimal. 18 minutes divided by 60 minutes in an hour is 0.3, or 3/10 of 1 hour. The $12 per hour multiplied by 0.3 equals $3.60. The standard labor cost is $3.60 per lamp. Now let's look at contribution margin. This represents the difference between net sales and variable cost. It's the amount that will cover fixed costs and provide for net income. Net sales minus variable cost equals contribution margin. Variable costs are constant per unit. The total varies with the level of activity. Fixed costs are constant in total. The per unit amount varies with level of activity. To determine contribution margin, we have net sales, in this example $850,000, subtract variable cost $525,000, and the difference is the contribution margin. We need to compute the contribution margin ratio, the relationship among these items. Net sales will always equal 100%. Variable cost and contribution margin are a percent of net sales. For variable cost, it's fine to drop the zeros when we make the computation. 525 divided by 850 net sales gives a decimal, multiply by 100 to get a percentage. And we need to round. In this case, we're going to round at 1 decimal point, or 1 decimal place. Always check with your instructions to see when you should round. Contribution margin, take the 325 divided by 850, that's a decimal, times 100, and that gives us an approximate 38.2%. And again, we've rounded at 1 decimal place. Always remember to add the items 61.8% plus 38.2%, and it should equal 100%. It may be off a fraction of an amount because of rounding, but it should be very close to 100%. Interpretation: 38.2 cents of every net sales dollar go to cover fixed cost and provide net income. Now let's compute selling price. The product selling price is, there's a 45% markup on the product unit cost. The product unit cost consists of direct material, direct labor, and factory overhead. In this example, that is $7. The product unit cost times 1 plus the markup, 1 to cover the product unit cost plus the markup, equals the selling price. In our example, the product unit cost is $7. The markup is 45%, so that equals 1.45. Multiply, and that gives us the selling price of $10.15. Now let's solve for an unknown. Direct labor for X2 is $800,000. This is 8% higher than the X1 amount. What was the X1 direct labor? X1 direct labor is the unknown. We multiply that by 1 plus the increase, 1.08, and that equals the X2 direct labor amount. The unknown times 1.08 equals 800,000. Now we can divide both sides of the equal sign by 1.08. When we do this, our X1 direct labor, the unknown, approximately equals $740,741. We've rounded it to the nearest whole dollar. So in summary, be sure to use the proper tools when working with math computations. Always have a calculator handy. If appropriate, use Excel. Whether you use Excel or pencil and paper, take time to show your work and use proper labels. This helps with finding errors, reviewing for exams, and getting partial credit for your work. Always review your answer to make sure that it's reasonable. Practice is important. Seek help early. Your instructor, tutors, classmates, friends, and family are willing to help you.